Hi there, everybody. It's Dan Cirucci, and I'm here with Christine Flowers. We're together again. And, oh my God, Christine, how are you?
Hi, Danny. Well, now that I see you, I'm all better. I had a long day, but this is the cherry on top of my Sunday, or the cherry hill on top of my Sunday. Glad to see you.
I know, Christine, this has been sort of difficult for you. You've been sort of displaced. You're in a sort of limbo. I
I am.
feel much better because I'm stuck here in a 1,200 square foot condo.
I feel like a tumbleweed because I've been going back and forth between different places. But I understand this is temporary, and we just have to make do. But I'm really glad that we have this mechanism, this way of communicating, because I've had a lot of people reach out and say to me, when are you going to be back on the radio? Why aren't you on the radio? We really miss having you and Dan together. We really want to hear you guys talking about things. And so this is great because it gives us an opportunity to do the show, tap dance with the hat and the cane, without the radio station.
When are you going to be back on?
I wish I knew. I drove by the Aramark building today, which is, where the studios are. You've been at the studios.
Yeah.
And it really, apparently they don't want to have people in that building until September. There's going to be a lot of distance employment.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're doing with the weekend shows. And I reached out to the producer, and I got kind of like a squishy, non-committal answer. I do believe we will be back on probably later rather than sooner, but I'm looking at maybe late summer. Unfortunately, that means that we won't be able to have the regular radio show, but we can do this, which is actually not a bad substitute.
Fun. And tonight we said we were going to talk about everything but politics. I don't know, can we do this, Christine?
That's going to be really hard for you and me, Dan. I really think it, but we will try. We can do this. We can really focus. But yeah, it's not going to be easy for us.
Well, one of the things we were going to talk about was books. What's the last book you read?
The Great Influenza by John Barry.
Oh, no.
Well, my brother, back in late March, when everything started, well, not everything started, everything shut down like a vice. One day I'm at immigration court doing my thing, and the next day the courts are closed, the stores are closed, the city's closed, everything's closed. And I was in the city, but my family is out in Delaware County in the suburbs, and for a variety of reasons I have kept my distance from them because I don't want to expose them to city germs. So every Saturday, my brother will come into the city and drive in, and we'll say hi to each other, and we'll exchange, I'll bring him stuff from DeBruno's, and he'll bring me some things from home, my mail. And about a week and a half into the pandemic, we weren't even calling it a pandemic at that point, he drops off his copy of John Barry's The Great Influenza, about the 1918 influenza incident. And it's fascinating, Dan. I love nonfiction books as well. I just ordered, I like some
more
fiction.
Fascinating than any story anybody can make up.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and it is more fascinating than fiction. I love the classics. I love, the old French and Italian and British and great American classics. That fiction I love. But modern contemporary fiction just doesn't move me, but I love nonfiction, and I love documentaries.
Can you tell me a book you read that had a profound influence and you maybe even changed your life?
It's hard to really say one, but I will tell you one that really did make me fall in love with the English language, and that was Theodore Dreiser's An American Tragedy. That book, An American Tragedy, it's big. The Dreiser books are hefty.
Yeah, I read it.
But An American, the reason that I loved it so much was that it was so different from other books that I had read about American history, and I don't mean American history writ large, the Revolution and the Civil War, talking about people and their lives. And the characters in the Dreiser book were just so well written and so well delineated. And it is an American tragedy. And I remember when I first read it, people said this was titled The Great American Novel. This was the first book that really was considered the Great American Novel, because it was large, it was epic, and it was written like one of those great European epics, you know, one of those great Stendhal French books.
Dreiser at Villanova under a wonderful professor, Dr. Wilkinson, and Dreiser was very, at the time I studied him, was very underrated, practically forgotten. That
Absolutely.
book was made into a movie with Warren Beatty, Shelley Winters, and was it Natalie Wood? Or
Elizabeth Taylor.
Elizabeth Taylor,
Place
right.
in the Sun.
But it was.
And I think, was it Montgomery Clift, wasn't it?
Oh,
Montgomery Clift?
right, Montgomery Clift. I was confusing it with Splendor in the Grass. Yeah.
Which is another great, it reminds me of that kind of same thing.
Montgomery Clift, Elizabeth Taylor, and Shelley Winters.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It's
and it involved class conflict and class consciousness too, in a very, very real and powerful way. And of course, it involved law and justice and crime, which are
And well, I like the fact that you point out the class issue, because I think, I mean, that was one of Dreiser's big focuses. And we don't, in the United States, in America, we don't consider ourselves a classist society. We point to Great Britain, and we point to, it's like, oh, they have the monarchy, and we are a very class conscious society. Yeah. And that book is beautifully written, because it shows, you know, this man who comes from nothing, you know, a religious family. I think they were like, his family were evangelicals, and he wanted to get out of that. He wanted to make something better of himself. And but you know, he works in a factory. He falls in love with the Shelley Winters character in the movie, who's this blue collar, brass, and kind of like low class woman. But he falls in love with her, and you know. But then he gets this taste of the Elizabeth Taylor, and in the book, I think her name was Sonia. I forget the name in the movie. And he's dazzled. It's like, oh, I want this. I want that special golden, you know, brass ring. Yeah. And that's what causes ultimately the tragedy when I mean, should we do the spoiler for the people, or should we just sort of, you know, pretend?
Spoiler. No, they should read the book, An American Tragedy, or when it's on Turner Classic, or they can probably get it on demand on Comcast or whatever. They should see the movie A Place in the Sun.
Yeah.
And here's a book that I read, Christine. It's very obscure. You probably can't find it. It probably isn't even in print anymore. That had a great effect on me. And this is nonfiction. It's Professor Richard Gambino's Blood of My Blood. And it's subtitled The Dilemma of the Italian Americans.
Oh, wow. Oh, I'd love to read that.
This book changed the way I thought of myself and my heritage and what it means to be me. Okay. And it actually made me, like, at that time, a militant Italian American, if you can imagine that.
More militant than you are now. No, I can believe it. And what a dramatic title.
Sociological study. And it's so thorough and so complete. And I'm looking on the back of it, it got really good reviews, a really nice review, but from Michael Novak and even the New Republic, not necessarily my favorite magazine, and the New York Times Book Review. But it's a historical sociological and psychological study of what it means to be Italian American.
Who is the author again?
He was professor at City College of New York, Richard Gambino. I don't know if he's still alive, and I don't know if he was related to the Gambinos, but
Yeah.
his name happens to be Gambino. Okay.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I love anything that brings me back to my heritage. I was ironically enough, I was on SEPTA today, and I was wearing a mask, and I was waiting for the subway to come, and a little old lady sat next to me, and she had beautiful silver hair, white, wasn't gray, it was silver white hair. She had the smoothest skin. She was clearly elderly. She was beautiful. And we were sitting there, and she was headed to South Philly, the same direction that I was headed in. We were chatting, and she said to me, she said, I'm going to be 85 tomorrow. And I said, God bless you. And I said, can I ask you something, please? And I always hate it when people start a conversation saying, can I ask you something? Because you're already asking them when you say, can I ask you something? But anyway, I said that. I said, would you by any chance be Italian or Italian American? And she said, of course I am. And the way she said it with such pride. And she said, why would you ask me? And I said, because you are so beautiful. And because your skin is so smooth. And you have these gorgeous eyes. And the way you speak. And everything about you screams out Italianità. You are Italian. And she smiled and she laughed and she said, are you Italian? And I said, well, my dad was Irish, but my mother was Italian, and I am Italian. I love I appreciate my Irish heritage, but I'm Italian. Everything about me exudes Italian, and I love it dearly. And she smiled and she said, that's unusual for a person of your generation. I loved it that she was like treating me like a young person. I'm 58, which is a person of your generation to be so attached to your roots. And I said, there was that whole generation that said, become American, integrate into the American society. Don't speak Italian outside. Don't, change your last name. You're not Fiori. You're not the Gambino. You'll be Gamber, or you'll be Flowers, or you'll be something like that. And fortunately, the generation after me has decided that it's important to hold on to those roots, regardless of what ethnicity you are. But we have so much to be proud of as Italians.
It's very important. I mean, speaking of Italian, this is one of my favorite artists, Caravaggio.
Yep.
Now, can you think of a work of art, Christine, that you really, really love, that you...
Yes.
What would it be?
The Sistine Chapel, the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel.
The Sistine Chapel. And you've been there.
Yeah. I lived in Rome, and I used to take the 64 bus every Wednesday to the Vatican. I was at the American University, Loyola University in Rome, Monte Mario, and it wasn't a very long bus ride to the Vatican from where we were. And I used to go, ostensibly I went to go to church and stuff. I actually went because there was this really cute guy who worked at the Vatican post office named Massimo, but that's another story for another day. But I would go there, and the chapel wasn't always open. There were hours of visits that you could take, but I must have visited that beautiful chapel at least 20 times in the 6 months that I lived in Italy. And just walking in there and looking up at the ceiling and seeing the creation of man, the fingers, Adam and God. I just get goosebumps thinking about it now. And my other favorite piece of art is a sculpture, and that happens to be David, Michelangelo's David at the l'Accademia in Florence.
Yes, in Florence. Yes, I've been there. Well, one of my favorite paintings is by Caravaggio, I mean, let me say that it's a painting that had a profound effect on me, and it's called the Entombment, and it shows the entombment of Christ from the cross. And
Oh,
this plate does not do it justice, but this painting is um, nine. It's almost 10 feet by 7 feet. It's mammoth. It's a mammoth painting. Okay, and I saw this painting both at the Vatican and at the Treasures of the Vatican exhibition at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
Amazing, amazing. But the first time I saw this mammoth painting with Christ being taken, it's called the Entombment, but it really looks like they're bringing him down from the cross. It just had such an overwhelming effect on me. I was transfixed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't move away from it. I couldn't, it was a little embarrassing because we were in a museum, you know.
It's very powerful. I had that same impression here in Philly. If you go to our magnificent Philadelphia Museum of Art, and Prometheus Bound, that the Peter Paul Rubens, it is about the same size of Caravaggio, but it is, you stand in front of it. I've taken pictures of it with my cell phone, and just I have these so I can look at it every now and then. And just, you know, the story, the myth of Prometheus, he stole fire from the gods, and to punish him, they had him chained to a rock, and a vulture, a buzzard, a vulture, would pick at his bowels. And it's so lifelike, this painting. It is so beautiful. I would urge everybody out there who's listening to us to go, when it reopens, to the Philadelphia Museum of Art and just stand there in awe of that amazing
marvelous,
painting.
marvelous collections at both the Philadelphia Museum of Art and right down the road at the Barnes. I mean, we have the most magnificent collections of Impressionists anywhere in the world except for Paris. I mean,
right.
We're only rivaled by Paris.
I want your opinion on something when you mentioned the Barnes, because I went to Mary and Mercy Academy for 10 years. In 10 years, I was literally 3 blocks down on Montgomery Avenue and Levering Mill Road in that area from the old Barnes Museum, which was Dr. Barnes's home. And you know, that very idiosyncratic way, he had the paintings up on the walls, and you could only go in there every 3rd Monday when the moon was high, you know, and you had to stand on one foot. You had those bizarre things. They moved it, and I remember, and I'm still resentful of it, even though I know that they did everything that they possibly could to make the current location a good location. And they tried to honor the way he put the paintings up and everything. Yeah. But I really was angry about that. And there's a great documentary called The Art of the Deal, or The Art of the Steal, I think it's called.
Or something, The Art of the Steal. Yes, I saw it.
What did you think about that? When it first happened, what were you thinking?
Well, I was very conflicted, Christine, because I can understand the passion of these people and their refusal. You know, they couldn't understand, because when you went to see it in what was Dr. Barnes' property, you had a sense of him being there. This was his place. Right. And so you know, he was so intertwined, not just with the paintings, but the way they were displayed, which was very idiosyncratic.
Right.
But so I understood all of that. And it was like a park-like setting. It was very intimate. It was intimate where he had them. On the other hand, I just thought it was wonderful for Philadelphia that it could be right on the Parkway. And when people come to Philadelphia, we could say to them, here you are, look at these museums right next. I mean, it's truly world class with these 2 museums within like, what, a half a mile of one another?
3 museums if you count the Rodin Museum.
The Rodin, right. So there's 3. And it's just such a more, and then there's that wonderful statue of Joan of Arc across from the Art Museum. which Philadelphians call Jody on a Pony.
Jody on a Pony. And what about Moses on the Pineapple in Fairmount Park? You know, Moses on the Pinnacle, that was always Moses on the Pineapple, because it looks like he's standing on top of a pineapple or a pine cone. We've got great public art.
These are things that Philadelphians take for granted.
Yeah, I know.
For granted.
I know we do. I mean, you know, and speaking of public art and statues, and this is very stream of consciousness right now, but I happen to love and I'm going to try and stay away from politics. I love the Rizzo statue. I love Frank Rizzo's statue, which is in front of the Municipal Services Building, where it should be, because he was the mayor, and, you know, it's in a very high profile area. And it's a great statue. It's part of the city. So, and again, staying away from the politics, but
right.
You know where I stand on
right.
it. I mean, you'll have to chain me to the damn statue. If you want to move the statue, you'll have to move me too.
The thing about the statue too is he's looking towards City Hall, and
right.
He's animated. He's walking, and he's got his hand up, and he's waving, and he looks like he's coming toward you. This
right.
was a man. This was a very active man. He was always in motion.
Right, right.
In motion, and he was always reaching out to greet people. There's a story behind it that when they first showed, before it was finished, they showed it to Carmela, his wife, and she loved it. She said there was just one thing wrong with it, and they said, "What?" They couldn't imagine, and he said. She said he always wore a watch. He always wore this wristwatch that she still had. And so they made the wristwatch part of the statue.
Oh, wow.
So next time you look at it, notice he's wearing a wristwatch.
That's really, the statue, when I go by that statue, and I sometimes take the bus by it or I'll just walk by it, I always stop. I look weird. I always wave and I say, hi, hi, Mr. Mayor, because I do feel, like you said, I feel like he's reaching out to me. And it's, so I love the fact that Philadelphia is a city that appreciates public art. All the murals that we have down here in South Philly, one block at Broad and Tasker, there's the Boys of Bandstand, the James Darren, excuse me, and Avalon and Fabian and Bobby Rydell and Jerry Blavitt and Charlie Gracie and Joey Bishop and Chubby Checker and all those guys. And then 2 blocks up at Broad and Reed, you've got the great Mario Lanza. And that amazing. And up until they built something over it, unfortunately, there was the mural of Frank Sinatra. So we appreciate art and music. This is a good segue into music. What's right now, your current contemporary favorite musical artist? And I say contemporary because I know we have an embarrassment of riches for those who have, gone to heaven. But right now, who do you think?
Oh, that's difficult to say, contemporary. I like a lot of young Broadway performers that are just up and coming that most people probably don't even know about. People like Andy Carroll, Corey Cott, Jeremy Jordan. These are up-and-coming Broadway stars that have been in Broadway shows that I love. Okay, somebody that I would go see in concert. I like a lot of the young country stars. Okay, that are emerging. But I also I'm still a great fan of George Strait, the great country singer George Strait, who I've seen several times in concert.
Yeah. And I love Dolly Parton, and I think she spans so many generations. She's still as contemporary. I mean, she's still out there singing and putting out albums, and yet she is a grande dame of the Grand Ole Opry. In much the same way as Loretta Lynn. When you talk about country, it's interesting because back to back last weekend, I watched Coal Miner's Daughter, the Loretta Lynn story. Yes. I watched Sweet Dreams, the Patsy Cline story, and I adored Patsy Cline, and I listened to her music all the time.
Music.
I mean, exactly, the classic music. And then I watched 3 movies with Dolly Parton in them, the actual real Dolly Parton. And it just, I think you're right. I think country music is uniquely American. And
somebody that comes to mind contemporary, not country, that I would really, really like to see, and I haven't seen him in concert, is Michael Bublé.
I was going to say him too. I adore him. Oh my God. He's Canadian, isn't he? I think he's Canadian.
Yes, he is Canadian.
He is brilliant. I like Harry Connick Jr. too. I like that kind of contemporary singer who appreciates the past. Guess what? Another one that I love, Lady Gaga. Her duets with Tony Bennett were brilliant. The woman has an exceptional voice, and I love her music. I think she is.
What did you think of A Star Is Born?
It was okay. It was. My favorite version is not the original, but the first remake with Judy Garland and James Mason. I think that was the best version. But I do like the Janet Gaynor and Frederick March one, the very first one. I cannot stand the Barbra Streisand and Chris Christopherson one. That song Evergreen makes me want to throw up. It's like, ugh, oh God. And I hate her politics. Keep politics out of it. I adore Barbra Streisand, the 1965 to 1980 Barbra Streisand, with all those, like Stony End and
young Barbra.
Great. I love Barbra too.
Amazing.
But I couldn't stand that. That was a horrible, horrible, horrible.
I saw a movie the other night. I don't know whether you've ever seen it, Christine, with the young Barbra Streisand's first husband, young Elliot Gould.
Yeah.
They raided Minsky's.
I do. I have seen that. I love it. It's a great movie. Elliot Gould was a comic is a comic genius. He's still alive. My favorite movie that he was in was Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice with Natalie Wood, Robert Culp, and Diahann Carroll.
Amazing. I saw it in the theater at the old Translux Theater on Chestnut Street in Center City.
Oh my God. You did? Were you able to go? What was it rated, or did it have ratings or something?
It was very controversial at the time. Everybody was curious about it.
Yeah.
And listen, who didn't want to see these 4 beautiful people together in bed? I mean, these are 4 beautiful.
Diahann Carroll and Natalie Wood, 2 of the most gorgeous specimens. And Robert Culp. I mean, Elliot Gould wasn't exactly, gorgeous, but it was such a great movie. I love that movie. Yeah. And the soundtrack with Jackie DeShannon, What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love. I mean, the best ending of any movie, in a long time.
Very, very controversial at the time. But it was, and at the end they wound up doing nothing. Right?
I know. That's the whole thing. They're just like sitting there, against the bedboard, and it's like, now what do we do? It's almost like the last scene in The Candidate when Robert Redford gets elected, and then he says, "Yeah, now what?" Basically.
Now what do I do?
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Another great ending a movie line at the end of a movie is the end of Some Like It Hot. When
I don't remember. I love the movie, but I don't remember the ending. Remind me.
When who was it that was dressed as a woman? Jack Lemmon.
Oh, Jack Lemmon, yeah.
Was it Jack Lemmon or Tony Curtis? Which was?
Well, they were both dressed as women.
Was the one that the old man fell in love with, Joey
Jack Lemmon. Because Tony Curtis ended up with Marilyn Monroe.
That's it. So right. Jack Lemmon is dressed as a woman. He's there with Joey Brown.
Yes, that's it. I know.
Zillionaire. And he keeps saying to him, "There's something I got to tell you. There's something I got to tell you." And so Joey Brown's like, "Well, what is it? What is it?" And he takes his wig off and everything, and he says, I'm actually a guy. I'm a guy." And Joey Brown, this is the last line of the movie, goes, nobody's perfect.
A precursor to the transgender movement.
It was way ahead of its time. Written by Billy Wilder, written by the great Billy Wilder and I.A.L. Diamond, his partner. Well, his partner in writing. I don't want to give people the wrong impression.
No.
Billy Wilder was very heterosexual, as was his partner. But a great line that was way ahead of its time. Nobody's perfect. And that's the end.
Yeah.
And Wilder said, we didn't know how to end it. We didn't know what to do. And we came up, we had this scene. And then all of a sudden, like the line just popped into our laps. It was perfect.
You know, we could do an entire show on the, excuse me, the movies that we love. Because I've been cooped up and you've been cooped up, I've watched so many movies that are movies that I have loved, but that I haven't watched recently, or that I haven't watched in a long time. And so recently I saw Brief Encounter, the old Noel Coward black and white, that Rachmaninoff the soundtrack, which just breaks my heart. Beautiful movie. Waterloo Bridge with Vivian Leigh and Robert Taylor. Elmer Gantry with my hunka crush, Burt Lancaster, who was amazing in that, and Gene Simmons. See, these are all such fabulous, great movies. Yeah. And I don't think people, unless they're real film buffs, I don't think they really have them at the front of their mind when they think about what they're going to watch. They watch some stupid reality shows.
I hope that young people are studying these, young people that take those sorts of classes that are going for a fine arts degree or whatever those degrees are called now, whatever those courses are called now. I hope they're studying them. I like to think they're studying them, studying these great movies. I mean, you mentioned Natalie Wood. Will there ever be anybody like her? I mean, oh my God. She was so incredibly beautiful and talented.
To me, the most beautiful actress of her generation and many generations. I think the 5 most beautiful actresses of all time. This is my list. You can give me your list. Natalie Wood, Vivian Leigh, Hedy Lamarr. They're all brunettes, I guess, except for Grace Kelly. And the 5th one is Elizabeth Taylor. And not a one of them was born after probably 1920. I don't see the great beauties today. And it's not that there aren't beautiful women, but there aren't iconic, legendary beauties. There are people who pretty much look like each other, or they've gotten the plastic surgery to look like each other, or they've gotten the Botox lips or this or that. Those women may have been a part of the, the great, makeup artist Max Factor, his handiwork, but still there was something. Oh, and I guess I should open it up to the 6th. Also, Rita Hayworth. She was absolutely stunningly beautiful.
Yes.
So that's my list. What's your list?
Other people say Ava Gardner too. Ava Gardner.
I should have probably included her in there as well with, she and Elizabeth Taylor kind of always reminded me of each other, or Hedy Lamarr, the same thing.
I think if you're talking classic beauties, oh boy, whoa, are you still there, Christine? There you are.
I am, my battery's low, there I go.
No, I think, okay, I thought it was giving me a warning we were at the end of our time, but I think among classic beauties, I would have to say, of course I would say Elizabeth Taylor. I always include Garbo. I'm going way back now.
Oh yeah, those cheekbones, my God. I want to be alone, but I don't think she ever said that.
Not exactly that way, no. But I always include Garbo. One of my favorite movies with Garbo, Ninochka.
Ninochka, yeah. The Russian spy who falls in love with the American.
Yes. And Liv Ullmann, I thought, was a classic beauty. Absolutely classic beauty. And I would say she didn't make many movies, but Diahann Carroll.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Oh my God. She was so stunningly beautiful. You know who else, when you mentioned Diahann Carroll? Dorothy Dandridge. She was so beautiful in, was it Carmen Jones, I think was the movie. And, you know, and she died, she had a tragic death, but she was stunningly beautiful. But Diahann Carroll, who we just lost last year, just that face, those cheekbones, that milk chocolate skin. I guess you really can't limit it to 5. Okay, what about the guys? Who are your 5 favorite actors of all time?
Oh, well, I always liked actors that were a little bit edgy and unpredictable in their performances.
Mm-hmm.
Actors made you a little bit nervous and, I don't know, kept you on edge. Um, well, my wife happens to be a huge Clark Gable fan still. A lot of people are talking classic.
Oh
It's
yeah,
top Clark Gable.
he
Okay.
was brilliant, and he could do comedy and he could do drama. You know, he was Mutiny on the Bounty. He was brilliant with oh God, Charles. Oh my
Charles
God,
Lawton.
thank you, Charles Lawton.
Charles Lawton.
And
Fabulous.
then it happened, and then Rhett Butler, and then it happened one night, and all those.
And Jimmy Cagney and Edward G.
My favorite.
Robinson, they always kept you on edge, especially Jimmy Cagney.
Jimmy Cagney is my all-time favorite. Partly because he reminded me of my dad, but also because of that kinetic energy that you said. I mean, and then Yankee Doodle Dandy. What an incredible, I'm going to see that tomorrow for Memorial Day. Yankee Doodle Dandy is such a freaking amazing, brilliant movie. And the guy does all of his singing and dancing and tap dancing because he was an old hoofer and he wanted to do that film.
Right.
I also loved Gregory Peck.
Gregory Peck, of course. I think of contemporary actors. I just really, really enjoyed seeing Brad Pitt in this this movie that just was
Once
not.
Upon a Time in Hollywood. He
Once
was
Upon a Time.
fabulous.
Wasn't he wonderful?
I was so glad he got the Oscar, and he deserved it. And
Right.
I think he just had to wait until he grew into the person that he was destined to be.
He's
You
more
know,
the pretty boy.
he really wasn't. You know, my favorite scene in that. Did you see the movie?
Yes.
Yeah. My favorite scene in that entire movie is him with the dog when he's in his little trailer and he's making dinner for himself and the dog, and he has this conversation with this dog, and you just see him, and it's such a beautiful thing. It's like, this is the most important relationship of his life outside of the Leonardo DiCaprio character. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it takes a lot for a person not to be upstaged by a pet. And he wasn't upstaged by the dog, even though the dog was amazing. So I love that movie.
I'm a big Leonardo fan too. I'm a very big Leonardo fan. And I thought he was wonderful in the Wall Street movie. What was that called?
The Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street.
But you know what he should have gotten his Oscar for? And I agree with you that he's brilliant. The Departed. He should have gotten it for The Departed with the Martin Scorsese film, which Martin Scorsese finally got his Oscar for directing. Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon were, and you know, the great Jack Nicholson were brilliant in that film. Yes. And it was the first film, the irony being Martin Scorsese does all these brilliant, you know, Italian gangster movies, and he gets his Oscar for a movie about an Irish gangster.
What can I tell you? Christine, why don't we end with this? What's your favorite place in Philadelphia?
Rittenhouse Square Park. I've spent a lot of time there lately, just walking through, and it's as if spring has, I almost feel as if the park is mine, that it's my backyard, and it is a city park that is just so exquisitely beautiful. And I think the reason that it's important to me right now is that we've been with this pandemic, everybody's been told to stay inside. The last 2 months, the only place that I've been able to get out and smell the flowers is Rittenhouse Square Park. I also love I love all the parks, Washington Square Park, Rittenhouse.
The 5 squares. There's
Yeah,
5 squares and they're beautiful.
right. And George's Hill and the Belmont Plateau in Fairmount
Oh, I
Park.
love Belmont Plateau. What a
Yeah,
view.
yeah, yeah. The parks. The Philadelphia is, you know, William Penn's Green City town, and that's, I love it. I and you love this city too. And it doesn't matter who's the mayor. It doesn't matter who's city council president. It doesn't matter who's writing columns and who's, you know, doing this or that. The city is our city, and it transcends people and time. It is, if you love it, it is yours, and it doesn't matter who's running it. And I don't care if they run it into the ground and all these people who are screwing up. Philadelphia is still the most beautiful, wonderful, amazing city in the world.
It is amazing. It's eminently walkable. It's intimate. It's defined by its people. Rittenhouse Square is marvelously egalitarian. You see all kinds of people there passing through there at any given time of day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's
What's your favorite part of the city? What's your favorite part?
well, you already mentioned Rittenhouse Square and Belmont Plateau, which are two of my favorites, certainly from the steps of the Art Museum. It's very beautiful. But I happen to love Delancey Place. There's like a 2 or 3 block stretch of Delancey. I think it's called Delancey Place, not very far from Rittenhouse Square.
Right.
And just
amazing.
absolutely exquisite. It is one of the most exquisite residential streets you will see anywhere in the world.
It's really true. It's Delancey, Panama, those little tiny little streets off of like Pine, like Naudain Street and American Street,
Right.
and these little gems. They're this big, and you look down, and I love them. Society Hill, Alfred Alley.
Yes, they sort of caress you.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a unique quality of the city, and many of them have brick sidewalks, and it sounds different when you're walking on a brick sidewalk. The sound of people's feet on a brick sidewalk is so essential Philadelphia. Okay.
Danny, I got to tell you, yesterday I was walking. I've been taken to walking the 25 blocks from Broad and Chestnut down to Broad and Rittner. You know, I've been because I don't want to take SEPTA, and it's my exercise. It's like a half an hour walk. Yesterday I walked on 12th Street instead of Broad Street. So I walked south on 12th Street, and it started raining, and I had my umbrella, and the rain was hitting the paved stone, through the trees, these little tiny little side streets, and it was so beautiful. And just, I had an out-of-body experience. I said, you know what? I don't need to go to Paris. This is Paris for me.
There's absolutely joyous moments, and I think we'll end on that. I'm going to put this up at about 9 o'clock, and I'll send you the embed code, the link. It's going to be YouTube. It's going to be on my blog. I'll link to it on Facebook, and everybody will be able to enjoy it.
I thought this was fantastic, and we should do this again soon, because who knew you could do this? This is great.
We will.
We'll put it up.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. I love you. Un abbraccio.
Bye.
Ciao.